All right, guys, welcome back to Out of Office. I'm so excited for today's episode. It's one that I have genuinely been excited about since we've reached out to our guest, Danielle. Today's topic is a topic that impacts all of our lives as women.
Yeah.
And honestly, something that I feel like genuinely needs to be talked about and light should be shed on. Because I don't feel like there's enough information out about today's episode. And it's all about masculine and feminine energy, polarity, power, and the truth behind the buzzwords.
Love it.
Yes, love it.
I'm excited.
Excited.
So, just to give a little intro for our guest, Danielle, she is the founder of The Intimate Instinct. She's passionate about helping people understand intimacy, the dynamic between masculine and feminine energy. And we're just really excited to kind of dive into the conversation. There's just so much wisdom with the journey and expertise and knowledge that you have behind everything. And we love talking about, everyone's different opinion and views. So this is just a really exciting conversation to learn more.
Yeah.
Yay. I'm so happy to be here. I could talk about this stuff even in my sleep. So I'm happy to be here to talk about it.
Same. All right, so for our audience or guests that maybe might not know exactly how this all plays out and the definitions of it, how would you describe masculine and feminine energies in a way that someone who's not familiar with the concept would understand? And also some misconceptions that come along with what quite literally have become buzzwords, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked those questions together because I almost feel like with the same answer, I can answer both questions. So the best way of saying what masculinity and femininity is by starting out by saying what it's not. Everybody equates masculinity with being male, femininity with being female. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. Every person, regardless of their gender, their orientation, has both masculine and feminine energy. So let's set the record straight on that right from the get-go. Um, I personally I come from a very science-backed family, right? And a very educated family. My mom's a science teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my dad's a mathematician, my brother's a mathematician and a computer scientist. So when I started studying all of this stuff, the first question I asked is, what's the science behind it? Like, what actually is this shit? Because everybody talks about it in such a fruity, abstract, gendered way. And that just didn't sit right with me. So the more research I did, I started to realize I think that masculinity is the same thing as hormones that males tend to make more of. And I'll break that down. Femininity is associated with hormones that women tend to make more of. So all people have masculine and feminine energy. All people make the same hormones. It's just that men make more of some and women make more of others. So, for example, women make more estrogen, we make more progesterone, we make something called oxytocin, that we have more of it. These hormones are associated with nurturing, caring, emotions, communication, connection, a lot of the same things that femininity are associated with. Now, males also make these hormones, they just make less of them. And they also have femininity, they just have less of it. Male hormones like testosterone or vasopressin, and we could break down these things too, but I'm just throwing more buzzwords at you at this point. Those are associated with competitiveness, with protectiveness, with territorialism, with aggression, with anger, with a whole bunch of these other things that masculinity tends to be associated with. So, my favorite way of answering your question, even though I know it's a long winded answer, masculinity is not the same thing as being male. It's the same thing as testosterone driven behavior. Same thing for femininity. Does that make any sense?
No,
Yeah.
it makes so much sense because I feel like the first time I heard about like masculine and feminine energy was in a more like woohoo type of setting,
Mm-hmm.
which for a hot minute there, like was more of the world that I sat in. And then
Yeah.
I come from a very science-based family. Everyone in my family does some type of medical field or mathematical, same,
Mm-hmm.
um, very logic thinking. So the more that I got into it and I learned about it, the more I was like, wait, let me take a little bit of the woohoo out. And
Yeah.
this was the most beautiful, clean cut explanation I've ever heard.
Oh,
The more
thanks.
we're talking, it's like, yes.
Yeah, so I'm the same way as you, right? when I first started getting into this, everything I read or heard about it was fruity, was abstract, was spiritual. And I was like, where's the action steps that I could take right now to understand this more or to embody this more or to be more like this? And I didn't want to be told, like, just go sit and meditate, just go, like, sit and be with your body. Like, no, that's not helpful, at least not for the way that my brain works. And so trying to really understand where it comes from and like in the United States, we use the terms masculinity and femininity, but these things go back thousands of years. In Asian cultures, it's yin and yang. In Indian cultures, it's Shiva and Shakti, right? Like these things have been around for centuries. We just call it masculinity and femininity. So that's sort of the point is like it has roots in spirituality, but it's also been around for so long. If it were purely this like abstract spiritual thing, it wouldn't have stood the test of time. Like there's got to be some truth behind it. And that's what I went looking for. And I came up with hormones.
I absolutely love that. So, to piggyback on that, how would you say that masculine and feminine energies show up in like all aspects of life when it comes to like intimacy, sexuality, relationships? Because I know that that's something that I've totally deep dived on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it shows up literally everywhere. Every single interaction I've ever had with every single human. Up until I started studying this stuff, I never would have noticed it. The second that I really mastered this stuff, I see it in every single interaction with every human all the time. And anybody who I've taught this thing to, they say the same thing. They're like, before I started studying this, I didn't see it. Now I can't not see it. So it shows up everywhere. In my group that I run with my women, I ask them in one of our sessions, how do you define intimacy? And a lot of them give me the traditional definitions, right? It's vulnerability, it's trust, it's safety, it's knowing somebody really well. And all of those things are true. But I like to give them more, again, of a mathematical way of thinking about it. I really like to take the romance out of this topic, which is kind of ironic. I tell people, like, to me, intimacy is the culmination of all of our interactions and conversations with someone. So you can have good intimacy or you can have bad intimacy, right? Every single time you interact with someone, let me back up. The way that polarity works, right? Masculine attracts feminine, feminine attracts masculine. That's what creates that polarity. And I like to call it the hot and healthy tension between these things, right? So it's a good tension to have. So, in a conversation, if someone's in their masculine and the other person is in their feminine, they are just going to be vibing. The conversation is going to go really, really well. And at the end of that, intimacy is going to be enhanced as a result. You're going to be creating that trust, that safety, that vulnerability with people. If, on the other hand, one person is not necessarily in their healthy masculine space and the other person is coming back at them, not necessarily from a healthy feminine space, they're going to be butting heads. They're going to be struggling to communicate. They're going to be fighting. They're going to be seeing things, almost in more of a competitive way or in a rather than in a teamwork kind of way. Like it's just not going to, the vibe is just off. And then intimacy is made worse at the end of that, right? Because there's leftover frustration or resentment or tension or whatever you want to call it. So I like to think about when masculinity and femininity is done well, it creates intimacy. When it's not done well, it blocks or destroys intimacy.
I never thought of it in that sense of how it could affect intimacy. Like truthfully, and like as you're talking, I was like, holy cannoli. Like that's
Yeah.
insane. Because there are times where you just vibe with someone like instantaneously. And you're like, holy cannoli, like this just flows so good. And then I was sitting there thinking about all the times that that has happened. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, it's something I love to ask people. Like when you feel the feeling of sparks or butterflies, or we've just got good chemistry or the vibe, what actually is all of those things? In my opinion, it's masculinity and femininity done right.
yeah.
And then same thing, if you're just like, I just don't like that person, but I don't really know why, like we just never get along, I just don't have good grip on them, whatever it is. What is that? That feeling is masculinity and femininity not being done correctly. Like there's just something off in the balance of those things, and they're not playing off of each other the right way.
I mean, Chrissy, you and I have spoken about it. Like, I don't remember if it was on the podcast, but like how we've had our conversation of how women may not know how to like network with other women
Yeah.
in like the healthiest
Yeah.
way, and how they can be standoff sometimes, or how we feel like they could be like all the events we've gone to.
Yeah.
It's like I know for me, and we've talked about it on the Girls Girl episode, I was saying how I will gravitate more towards guy friends than girlfriends just because of the girls I've come across being so like drama
Mhm.
driven and gossip driven and sensitive, and like that wasn't the characteristics that I held to mesh
Mm.
well with them. But like
So let's talk about that a tiny bit. So one thing I like to tell people, it's not something I made up, it's standard in this line of work. Masculine and feminine energy can both be wounded, toxic, or divine. And let's break down what each of those mean, right? So, divine femininity or divine masculinity is authentic. That means, like, if you were still your 2 year old self before trauma and society and your parents and your colleagues and whatever told you who you should be, like, it's the most authentic, raw, natural, radiant, healthy, glowing energy. But because of that, it's extremely shy and it needs a lot of emotional, physical, mental safety in order to come out, right? Like over the years, we've been repeatedly traumatized and trialed and put to our tests and pushed to our limits. And so we guard that energy because it is raw and it is authentic and it is very vulnerable. So we shield that part of us as we go through life. That's where wounded or toxic energy comes in. Wounded energy, I like to think of it as the ought to energy, the should energy. It's like, I should be this way because I've been hurt before, or because I need to be this way, right? Like, because of some sort of external factor happening. So I like to think of it a lot as like almost like a clamshell, right? Oops, a clamshell. So when you're trying to protect your divine energy, your wounded energy comes in and steps in the way and like basically puts your walls up, right? And then you have your toxic energy, which is sort of society telling you to be a certain way or peer pressure telling you to be a certain way, right? So that's the almost forced upon you kind of energy. And wounded and toxic, sometimes they can bleed into each other. Like sometimes if you're in a wounded space for long enough, it can almost become the same thing as toxic. But there's for sure a clear difference between wounded and toxic and divine, right? And so a lot of these women, what wounded or toxic femininity looks like is gossipy, backstabby, two-faced, because they are protecting their most raw, natural, authentic parts of themselves due to something that's happened in their lives, right? Um, Wounded or toxic masculinity. Uh, I think in males, it's a little bit easier to see the difference because we talk about it a lot more with males. We hyper focus on wounded and toxic masculinity. It's one of my problems with this line of work is like, as women, we don't critique ourselves. We're so quick to push blame on the men, but we don't step back and look at ourselves. So there's also wounded and toxic femininity. We just don't talk about it as much because we critique the men, which I think is a problem. But anyway, wounded masculinity looks a lot like femininity on the surface. But as you dive deeper, you realize it's two totally different things. So, wounded masculinity is very passive, not very decisive, very, well, what do you want to do? I'll go where you want to. Like a guy's not even planning a date. You're trying to go on a date with a guy, and the guy's like, "Well, what do you want to do? Well, when do you want to go?" Like when he's asking those sorts of questions, when he's acting that sort of way, it's wounded masculine energy. He is afraid to step up to take charge for fear of getting critiqued or criticized, or for fear of making the wrong decisions, or for fear of coming across as too pushy or controlling because we've criticized those things out of men, right? Toxic masculinity is hyper aggression, it's cockiness, it's being self-obsessed. So there's a little bit of a difference between toxic and wounded masculinity. But my passion for all of this actually stemmed out of my last relationship. And I didn't realize it at the time. But what had happened was when I first met this person, we had a great balance. Like our sex was great, the chemistry was great, all of these things that we've talked about, right? I fell so madly in love. Over the years, we lost our polarity, like step by step by step. I moved more into a wounded feminine state, which sort of resembles masculinity. I was taking too much charge. I was controlling the direction and the pace of things too much. I was criticizing, I was nagging, I was nitpicking, I was all of these things. And I didn't know I was being them and I didn't know what effect it was having. But I was these things because slowly at the same time, my partner was starting to make fewer decisions. And when he was making decisions, he wasn't making as good ones. So then I stepped in to fix those decisions or to just make them from the get-go. So over time, he was sort of losing his confidence in his masculinity and he was moving more from a divine into a wounded state. And I was getting frustrated with him and projecting all of, the stress I was experiencing at work and whatever onto him. So I was moving out of my divine femininity into my wounded femininity. Now we had like wounded energy versus wounded energy. And no wonder it ended up in him cheating on me and finding some other woman who made him feel like a man again, who was that radiant femininity that was just irresistible to him because at home I wasn't radiating that feminine energy anymore. So I'm not saying that it's an excuse for the behavior. It's not. He should have handled it better, but it's an explanation for what happened, right?
Absolutely.
That is a crazy, like, that is so good that you can step back and look at it that
Yeah.
way.
Oh, it took time. It took time to be willing to open my eyes to the role I played.
I think that that's honestly like when I started to really deep dive into masculine and feminine energy and what that meant for me as one, a woman who owns a business, right? I've
Hmm.
also been with my partner for going on 13 years, right? So I noticed a shift in me where I went from being a very go with the flow. My husband has always taken charge, always ran with like making decisions to I sit in such a masculine role at work every day,
Hmm.
right? I make decisions every day. I'm the one that says how we do things, when we do things. And I
Hmm.
did not know how to turn that off when I got home.
Yeah.
It was this like constant state of just like me sitting in a masculine state. And I didn't even realize that I was losing my femininity or that I was turning it off.
Hmm.
So hearing you say that and being like, you turned into that without even realizing it. I mean, my partner didn't even realize that it was happening. It was just kind
Yeah.
of those things where he was like, okay, she's working and she brings her work home. And it wasn't until I really started to sit down and like learn about this and try to understand why I felt so off balanced.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I'm way too masculine right now. Like there needs
Yeah.
to be, I think that it has its time and place,
Hmm.
but there needs to be a way to flow through it. So, what advice would you give a woman who does own a business or does find herself in a more masculine role more often than not? How do you,
Like, turn it off
and that's
when you
the thing,
get home.
I don't know if it necessarily turns off, right? Because it's in you, right? It's not something
Yeah.
that has an off switch, but how
It
do you,
does and it doesn't.
right? Okay, yeah. How do you,
One thing I want to say that, like, before I answer your question, I think there's a really interesting thing for us to step back and think about here. Outside of the home, the world is a really masculine place, right? What do I mean by that? We're focused on production, go, 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 be somewhere, get something done, like be the best that you can be. We're competitive, we are fast-paced, we are goal-oriented. Those are all very masculine qualities. The world is becoming more and more and more masculine. And at the same time, you can see that like the world as a whole, as a society, we've lost a lot of feminine values, right? Like you can see it in the quality of our music because feminine energy is the energy of creativity, right? It's the energy of seduction and sway and softness and sexiness. We've lost a lot of that. If you look at the quality of our music, we went from Frank Sinatra, the Rat Pack. We went from this beautiful, seductive, sexy, sway kind of music to like music about big asses and big tits. Like we've lost, right? So like our creativity has gone away, which is a huge part of femininity. Our emphasis on production and quantity and drive and motivation and competition and money, those things have gone up exponentially. So men are expected to be the masculine ones typically, right? Females can also be masculine, but normally we look towards males to be the masculine ones. When they're inside the home, they're expected to be masculine. And when they step outside of the home, they're stepping into a world that's masculine. So they don't have such a big gap to close. Women, on the other hand, inside the home, not only do they want to be, but it's also expected of them to be very feminine. Except the second you close your door and you step outside, the world is masculine. So women have a much bigger gap to close or to open at like the end and beginning of the day, right? So it's exactly what you're saying, right? You're a business owner. So the second you step into your business space or outside of your home, you've got to put on your masculine hat and take off your feminine one for the most part. And when you come home, your kids want you to be nurturing and loving and warm. Your husband wants you to be that way, affectionate, physical, all of those things. That's all femininity. So you have to put your feminine hat back on, take your masculine hat back off, and you have a much bigger gap to close at the end of the day. Another thing you said is like, we don't notice this happening. It's so true, right? But once you start to study this and you start to see it, you can't unsee it. And
Literally,
so that
yes.
it goes to show how important it is to learn this stuff, to study it so that you can prevent this really like invisible, gradual, but like 100% it will happen if you don't pay attention to it. So I just wanted to kind of call that out. So what can you do, right? It looks different for every person. I wish I had a better answer, but what one woman needs to do to transition back into her feminine energy is going to be different from what another woman needs to do, which is sort of what we talk about in our group. Like, well, what's your strategy? Well, what's yours? Well, ooh, I like that. I'm going to try that. Oh, well, that's not for me, right? Like, it's a space to just share ideas and see what works. It's a lot of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, like, for me personally, one of the strategies that works really well is I like to come home and I like to go for a walk before I settle into being at home. I like to make it a device-free walk, me and my thoughts, and like it's something physical. I'm moving into my body a little bit more. Sometimes I'll dance a little bit, like, and I'm not a dancer, but I'll come home and I will like close the door. Nobody sees me. I'll put on some music and I'm just like swaying a little bit, literally just trying to move out of my head back into my body. I know this is more of like a stereotypical thing, but like cooking really helps me. Like everybody's like, women shouldn't be stuck in the kitchen. I'm like, I'm not stuck. I'm choosing to be there.
Like, I literally love that you said that because there's something about me coming home and cooking that instantly I'm like, I'm that bitch. Like,
Yeah.
no
I'm
one
like,
me. I can do anything. And I
and
never used to feel like that.
yeah, and why is that, right? Because food is like I learned this by studying Julia Child. Food is a way of nurturing, and nurturing is a feminine quality. So when you are pouring your heart and soul into creating a healthy meal and you're making it with love, you're not only putting that nurturing energy into the meal itself, but then using that meal to nurture whoever you feed it with, which is a very feminine thing to do. You look at Julia Child, she's a great example of femininity. Actually, she's a great example of somebody who has both because she had this kick-ass career, right? She was extremely feminine, which is what allowed her career to be so successful because she had so much charisma. She had so much warmth about her. You watched her and you fell in love. That's because of her feminine energy. Yet she was hardworking, she was goal-oriented, she knew what she wanted, she chased her dreams. That was all very masculine. And like you look at, if you ever read about her husband, I think, worked in the army for a little bit, but he was standing there holding cue cards for her, right? He was like there helping her with her career. A really great example of the masculine, because masculine is the support system, right? So he's there holding cue cards for her. He's there helping her get gigs. He's there doing a lot of her financing. He's doing a lot of the behind the scenes things that allow her to be her. He gave so much masculine support and she responded by radiating with this femininity, right? Like that's an example of it done well. And she's an example of one person embodying both of those energies and using them in the right time and place. Another person I love to use as an example, Princess Diana.
Oh,
That's
yes.
great.
She is probably the most globally recognized of all time example of the power of femininity. That is one of these myths too, that feminine energy is weak, suppressed, oppressed. Like Diana was radiant, made the whole world fall in love with her, and she was a stark contrast from the rest of the monarchy, which, no surprise, was masculine, right? Like really buttoned up, really structured, really this, really that. And she came in there with all of this warmth and took the world by storm. And she's like loved her kids, was extremely warm and nurturing as a mother. Like all of that was so much feminine energy. And look what it did. Like, look how the world responded to it. So that's a perfect example, her and Julia Child, perfect examples of the power of femininity, actually, when done right.
I love those two examples because the visuals that I was getting, I'm like, wow, like those two women actually were the perfect balance of
Mhm.
masculine and feminine.
And at the same time, like two very different examples, right? So it goes to show that femininity is not all one thing. It's sort of what you choose it is for you, what's authentic for you. Again, go back to your like 2-year-old self. What's authentic for you and how you define it to be. They were two very different humans, yet both really solid examples of feminine energy.
I absolutely love that. And it's also too like something that came to me when you were talking about Julia Childs is I think that at least for me, I resonate with this and maybe I'm reading into it, but I know that when I started to really balance my femininity and understanding like it was okay to not always have to be so logically thinking and
Oh,
you know,
100%.
finding ways to like really step into my femininity. I feel like the reason it was so not easy, but graceful was I did have a really good partner that made me feel so safe to step into that feminine role because it was intimidating to start feeling more like feminine and creative after
Because it's vulnerable. That's why it's
yeah,
intimidating. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so
so that's what I was going to say is like we're talking about all of these things that you can do to take off your hat at the end of the day. And like I hate to put your success in the hands of somebody else, but there
it's
is something to be said for the fact that when they are in their healthy masculine energy, you effortlessly, naturally fall into your feminine energy without even thinking about it, right? So it takes two to tango. I absolutely love that sentence. That's why I painted this painting behind me of two people tangoing. Like, as a constant reminder that, like, if he's in the right energy, 80% of my success, whether or not I will be in the right energy, is if he is.
yeah,
Yes, I can go on a walk. I can take a good bath. I can cook. I can do some of these things that help me too. But so much of it is his energy. And I'll tell you what, like, when he leaves at the beginning of the day, because he works outside of the home, I work inside of the home. When my partner leaves at the beginning of the day, if he leaves me in the right energy, then like the whole time that he's gone, I'm like, I can't wait for him to come home. I can't wait for him to come home. And then me being in my feminine helps him be in his masculine when he comes home. So it works two ways, right? And that's where I'm saying every single interaction is a chance to either improve intimacy or hurt intimacy because depending on how he leaves me at the beginning of the day, if he comes into the room and gives me a kiss on the cheek and like closes the blind so I can sleep a little bit longer, and he leaves me a note in the morning, then I'm dying for him to come home. And what do I end up doing? I end up wanting to cook, wanting to clean, wanting to do all of these things so that when he comes home, there's fresh meal on his, on the table because I know he worked hard all day and I know he's going to be hungry. But if he leaves in the morning and like leaves the house a mess and he wakes me up early because he's making all this noise and he isn't sensitive to the fact that I'm trying to sleep a little bit still. And, if during the day he doesn't check in with me at all and he doesn't like tell me that he's thinking about me in some sort of way, like if he doesn't check in at all, normally when he comes home those nights, like I don't have dinner ready because I didn't feel called. I didn't feel drawn to doing that for him. And how I show up when he comes home, like it all feeds off of each other.
oh, absolutely. But I also think when you're in a relationship and you are aware of these things, right? I feel like the one thing that helped my husband and I really start to recognize these things and have flow, because at the end of the day, we're human. You're gonna have days
Totally.
where he might be off or you might be
Hmm.
off. But I also think that having these types of conversations, right? Or letting your partner know, hey, listen, these are the things that I would require to feel safe, right?
100%.
I need in order to show up best for you. And like vice versa. Cause like when I
Hmm.
was really stepping into this and trying to get my spark back, right? And like my flow, I had a conversation with him and he is very secure in who he is and very well balanced. And he was like, all right, well, can I give you my list of how
Hmm.
I'm gonna feel nurtured and how I will feel safe? And I was like, oh, well, duh. Like,
Yeah.
why
Because
would you
we're
not have a list?
right. I mean, I'll tell you, I was telling you guys before the show started, but our listeners didn't get to hear. I came home yesterday for the first time in 10 days after dog sitting. I was watching somebody else's dog, staying in somebody else's house. I haven't been in my own home. I come home late last night. It's probably 9:30 at night. And my partner is like so excited for me to get home, like really wants to cling to me, like is really like happy that I'm home. And I had to say to him, like, I need you to give me a hot minute. Like, I needed for myself, I needed to unpack my bag. I needed to like take an inventory of what was in the fridge. I desperately needed some food because I had skipped lunch and skipped dinner. I was hungry. And like I also have an OCD need when I come home after like a vacation or a long time away. I need to like clean just so that I feel connected to my home again. So I was like, I need you to give me a hot minute. Like, I'm not in a place where you can latch on to me right now. As much as I want to be here for you, it's nothing personal. Like, I just need a minute because I was not in a feminine place, right? I was very much so in a masculine place of like, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And, he gave me some space. He allowed me to do what I needed to do. And like, by the end of last night, we had some really great sex because he gave me the space that I needed to come home, to come back to myself, to come back to him. And then before you know it, by the end of the evening, we were back at our normal. But if I hadn't said to him like, "Hey, give me a little bit," like then it would have we talk about that clamshell, it would have made my clamshell go up even more because I would have been overextending myself. So much of this, I always talk about this in the context of relationships, but it all starts with you. You need to know you, who you are, what makes you feel feminine, what makes you feel masculine, how that shows up for you, tips and strategies that help you pull that side out of you and help you control which one you're in, and knowing what your needs are and being able to vocalize that, even though it's really, really tough. Society has definitely squeezed that ability out of most of us. But it starts with you, and like each of you have to be equally as committed to that, and each of you need to have the language to be able to communicate it with each other too.
So, kind of like we talk about ways that we can control it in a sense or be mindful of it. But what
Hmm.
about outside of like the things that we can control? Like, we can't control what causes us stress to a certain extent and like how we're
Yeah.
handling that stress and the amount of the stress that we're getting. So, like, kind of diving into the connection between stress hormones and sex hormones and like knowing how to like be mindful of them
Yeah.
and balance them. Like what would you say about that?
Okay, I love that you brought up the connection between stress hormones and sex hormones. That's awesome that you're bringing that up. So, I like to tell people there is something called a hormone hierarchy. It's like a little triangle, right? Hormones at the bottom of this hierarchy are extremely foundational and really influential. Like they affect so many other processes in your body. And so, almost like a house of cards, if your bottom layer isn't solid, everything that rests above it is not going to be. At the very top of that hierarchy are like the hormones that are super specialized that like really do specific things and they depend on everything beneath them to be balanced. So in that hormone hierarchy, sex hormones are at the very top. So testosterone, which men make more of, though women make some. Estrogen, which women make way more of than men do. Progesterone, vasopressin, oxytocin, a lot of these hormones that we've been talking about that correlate with masculine and feminine energy, that correlate with your mental health, that correlate with your libido, your fertility. Those all rest at the very top of this hierarchy. So if everything at the bottom of this hierarchy is not balanced, your libido, your fertility, your mindset, your personality, all of your mental health, all of those things are going to be thrown off, right? Now, at the very, very bottom of this hierarchy is insulin, which you might have heard of. I like to think of it as like the sugar sheriff or the energy gatekeeper. Like it helps regulate your blood sugar. And so there is so much evidence about the importance of regulating your insulin and regulating your blood sugar, preventing blood sugar spikes, right? That's at the very bottom of this hormone hierarchy. So if you think about it, every time you eat, every time you exercise, it affects your insulin, which is why those things are so important. Now, one step above insulin in this hierarchy is cortisol, which is your main stress hormone. So cortisol is, I like to think of it as like the stress team leader because you also have adrenaline, which is also a stress hormone. But adrenaline is more for like acute short-term stress, like, ooh, there's something chasing me, I better run. Cortisol is more your like long-term chronic stress hormone, right? So if insulin is regulated, it helps regulate your cortisol. The next layer in this hierarchy is thyroid hormones. So if insulin is regulated, your cortisol tends to be regulated, your thyroid hormones tend to be regulated, and then your sex hormones are much more regulated. But if insulin is thrown off, then your cortisol is thrown off, then your thyroid hormones are thrown off, and then your sex hormones are thrown off. So, um, you are right that we can't control all of our stress, but there are some key things to think about. Like, first of all, there's a huge difference between the words eustress and distress. I'm sure you've heard the word distress. Have you ever heard the word eustress?
Mhm.
So there we go, right? So eustress is actually a positive kind of stress. So think of it like when you're exercising at the gym. You're actually going through eustress. Your body is going through stress, but it's a good stress. It's a stress that's beneficial for you. Whereas distress is obviously stress that's not good for you, right? The thing is that we only think about things if we have the language to think about them. So if we don't know that eustress is a thing, then we tend to think of all stress as distress. And how we think about it impacts how we internalize it, right? So, first of all, being able to distinguish good stress from bad stress and recognizing that not all stress is bad. Another thing too is putting yourself in the right place. I'll tell you, like, I used to work at Google and Cisco and Facebook, these gigantic tech companies, and I was so motivated by the money, the reputation, the health insurance, the perks, the benefits, like all this stuff. It was extremely stressful. And I took it because I'm like, look what I have to gain from it, right? Like I allowed myself to be like, oh, I won't get too stressed by this. This isn't so bad. It's worth it, right? You do have control over where you put yourself. So, like, if something is causing you chronic distress, you
Me.
need to take yourself out of that situation. Like, you are responsible for protecting yourself as much as you can. If your job is putting you through the ringer, you either need to find a different company or a different career or a different something. Like you are responsible for getting yourself out of that situation. And so many of us just continue to take it and don't do anything about it. And that's like, that's on you. Like, I hate to say that, but not, of course, not everything is something you can solve. Like, if a family member is sick, you can't just make that go away. But if it's something that you do have control over, like your job, like, you've got to fix that. That's on you. So, first of all, taking yourself out of stressful situations and making the changes you've got to make, even if they're not easy, even if they're not quick, even if you have to temporarily like take a step back in terms of your income, your comfort, whatever it is. Second is how you think about stress, like not catastrophizing everything, not thinking that all stress is bad stress. Third, there are techniques that you can use, right? Like continuing to eat healthy and continuing to exercise well, because that helps manage your insulin, which then manages your cortisol. So choosing to make healthy lifestyle choices, like continuing to get sleep. It's so easy. I'm still victim to this, or like I still fall into this trap. Work is hard, so I'm going to work, a 15-hour day to try to catch up. And then I get 6 hours of shitty sleep because A, I'm going to bed late, and B, I'm going to bed with so much stuff on my mind. And C, I had blue lights and whatever, everything stimulating me all the way up until the minute I went to bed. So I did not maximize what I could do to have a good night of sleep. Well, sleep is going to then impact all these other hormones, right? So, like making the right lifestyle choices, taking yourself out of stressful situations, not thinking about all stress the same way. Like those are some really big things, and those will all impact your sex hormones, your energy.
I feel like everything you said was like at me.
Made for Marlene. I'm
Am I targeting you?
I don't know. That
Without
was
knowing, yeah.
actually thank you.
Yeah.
I gave you a break from having to say it to her.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's also at a very like pivotal time in your life. Like I think hearing this and also the direction that you're going right now is probably also validating.
Yeah, it's reassuring
Yeah.
hearing it. It's not like, oh shit, like I need to make a change. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm making the right steps for the change, but it took a lot to get me to where it got me of like
Yeah.
I need to just say screw it and hope for the best and do it because the stress of getting to the hopeful end goal is worth, you know,
That's a good
Hmm.
stress.
getting rid of the stress I'm dealing with now.
100%. And I would say, like, you're taking your power back and you're detaching yourself from societal standards and pressures and expectations. And guess what that means? You are moving more towards your authentic self. You're moving more towards your divineness, whether it's feminine or masculine, whatever it is. You're moving more towards your authentic you and more towards your divineness. And you're stepping away from the wounded, the toxic, the shit that's throwing off your mind, body, and spirit, right? And so it might be slow and painful, but the gains are worth it.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I'm still going through that process. I'm like, I've been building this business for a year and a half. I left corporate 3, 4 years ago. I'm still undoing the damage that I did to myself back then. I'm still making this transition. I probably will be for the rest of my life because I've so internalized all of these societal narratives that it's probably going to be the rest of my life that I'm like, nope, reminder, don't do that. Do this because that's so like ingrained in me.
how long were you in corporate for?
Let's see, I graduated in 2016. I launched straight into corporate. I did not leave until 2021, 2022. So I was in corporate for like 6 years, 7 years. But my workaholism started when I was in sixth grade. I mean, long story short, I was bullied a ton as a kid. So instead of having friends, I had colleagues. I like doubled down on work and working hard because I didn't get bullied there. So by the time I was in high school or college, I was a straight A student and working 6 part-time jobs. My first job I started when I was 12. Like I've been working consistently since I was 12. So even though I was only in corporate for 6, 7 years, I was like a total workaholic from age 12 until age 27. And I'm still working on undoing, like I said, all of that damage.
It's crazy because I feel like I had a really big like creative and emotional burnout like three
Hmm.
and I did not realize until you just said it that I think that it was a moment where I literally paused and was like, why am I adding so much to my plate that is not necessary? And I think I've been in a state of like, that's just my constant. I literally
Hmm.
started working when I was 13, Dairy Queen with my grandmother. And
Yeah.
I really did that from 13 to 16. And then from that point on, like I've had like full-blown careers or
Mhm.
businesses.
Hmm.
It
And
wasn't until that burnout of like me not feeling creatively fulfilled that I was like, something has to
Yeah.
change. But I never even thought about the fact that like it's a construct that I've had.
yeah, well, I want to ask you too, what does burnout mean to you? Because I have a different take on it than most people do, I think.
So burnout for me is not like me crashing out in a corner and being tired or upset, right?
Hmm.
Like burnout for me is when I'm not creatively fulfilled, when I'm unable to like truly connect with myself, with my partner. It's when I'm no longer able to show up for myself and put my needs first. It's when
Okay.
honestly my people pleaser takes over. It's what
So
my burnout turns into.
I love how you're phrasing it because my take on burnout,
Mm,
everybody talks about burnout as a work thing, right? Like I'm burned out from work.
good.
My take on burnout is you have whatever your natural state of masculine and feminine energy should be. And burnout is when you don't live a life according to that. So
Mhm.
here you are talking about like, I'm creatively burned out. I don't feel connected. That's all feminine energy. And so burnout, like that's how I define it too. It took me a while to get to this answer. Burnout was me not living in my feminine energy as much as I needed to and living a lot more in my like wounded feminine, masculine headspace. Doesn't matter if it's caused by work or by friends or by hobbies or whatever it is. It's just, I think we tend to blame work, but I think work is only a piece of it.
Yeah.
And so like if what's natural for you is to have this much feminine energy and this much masculine energy and you live a life that's like inverse, you're on a path to burnout because you're not living what's authentic to you, what your body, mind, and spirit need. And so if you're like, if you notice that for you, burnout is a lack of creativity and a lack of connection, you're not living in your feminine energy. And your body is telling you that's what it needs.
It was screaming at me. But
Hmm.
I think that, you know, I think it's a misconception that many people have, and it's something that, again, I'm human, so I constantly have to, like you were saying, check in with myself.
Hmm.
And I felt like, oh, I healed my feminine wound, you know, and I really dealt with that last year. So why am I feeling like this again? And then I realized I got into a space where I was neglecting it and I was genuinely not watering the things
Yeah.
that need to be watered.
It's so easy to fall out of it because, again, we live in this hyper masculine world. So it's really, really, really easy, unfortunately, to lose your femininity. And it's really fucking hard to get it back.
It
And
is
so that's why it's so much more important to invest in not losing it
bad.
than it is in trying. I mean, it's important to know how to get it back too, but the more you can invest in not losing it and in protecting it, you're cutting the problem off at the root instead of treating the symptom, which is so important.
I love that you just said that because I was about to say that. I feel like what I was doing for a hot minute was band-aiding it and being like,
Hmm.
okay, like I'll do this because this fulfills me right now.
Yeah. And what do you like? People will like use a vacation as a band-aid, right? To fix burnout. Because guess what? On a vacation, you're temporarily more connected. You're temporarily more creative. You're temporarily more this and more that, more connected to your sexuality, which is a huge part of this, right? And then you think a vacation is going to fix your burnout. You go back to your life and boom, you're back to living not authentically to you. And it comes back again.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely a song and dance internally, I feel like.
Totally. And it will be till the day you die if you're doing it the
Oh,
right way, right? Like it should be. It should be this thing that you are constantly having to check on. It should be this thing that you like. If it's easy, then you're probably not doing it the right way.
yeah. Wait, I love that. I think that was really like healing for me to hear just
Yeah. It is not easy. It's not easy. And that's why I build a community of women to do this together. Because A, women more than men need community. We are wired to be social as women. B, this shit's not easy. So, like, supporting each other through it, sharing what's working, hearing from others, asking for feedback and support, that's so important for this kind of work in particular, let alone like just the benefits of community and knowing you're not alone and hearing other people going through it. But that's why I'm passionate about working with groups. Everybody always asks me, like, why don't you work one-on-one with people? Like, because there's magic that happens in the group, right? Like, it is not easy. We need to do it together. We need to band together and unite.
it's also a really weird feeling as a woman and as someone who's has struggled with it. When you start to lose that femininity and you are having this battle in your head, right? Of like what feels right and what doesn't feel right. I cannot tell you what I think it would have done for me to speak to a group of women that were going through the same thing. I think
Yeah.
that would have healed me, honestly, probably quicker than I did on my own, you
Mhm.
know? But again, why we're having conversations with you and why we're doing this is because I don't think that conversations like this are had enough or that women feel
100%.
enough to have conversations like this.
100%. I mean, it's still very socially frowned upon to
Yeah.
have these conversations, right? So, one of the things I talk a lot about in this group is not only are we separating femininity from being female, because those are two totally different things. Energy is not gendered, but we also have to separate femininity from feminism, which
Ooh,
is again a totally separate thing. So, I unabashedly proclaim myself, I am an early stage feminist through and through. I absolutely believe women should have equal rights and equal opportunities, right? But I am not at all a proponent or a fan or whatever, a supporter of late stage feminism. Late stage feminism is all feel it at least feels like it's all about bringing men down, like blaming them for our problems, like blaming them for our issues. And I so do not believe in that. Our men are struggling. They're just struggling alone in silence. They have a lot of their own issues, and their issues are actually sort of similar. But because we keep shaming them and blaming them, like A, we're leeching masculinity out of them. The very thing we want them to have, we are blaming them for having, which is ridiculous. And like, no wonder our dating life has become a total wreck because men either don't know how to be masculine or are afraid to be because they're afraid it's going to come back to bite them in the ass. Like, I have a huge problem with us tearing men down, but I absolutely believe in how the movement began. Before all of these influencers in this space threw their own personal trauma that was unresolved into the public sphere, which is what happened. Like some of the earlier, like the 1970s feminists who really made feminism what it is today, like they threw their own unhappy marriages into public light and basically projected their issues. And now, like, we all should think men are this way, which I think is terrible. Like, that is not what it should be. So I always like to tell people, like, feminism is very different from femininity. Gender roles and gender expectations are very different from feminism and femininity and being female or male. Like, these are very different things. Being stuck in a kitchen is obviously not good, right? Like women should not be forced to be in a kitchen. They should have the choice to do what they want. If they choose to be in the kitchen because they want to nurture their families, because they enjoy the connection that they have with their home, they shouldn't be shamed for that. That's their choice. If they want to be out working or out, whatever, good, cool, great for you. But you should know if you're making that decision, what implications it could have on your masculine and feminine energy. Like, don't go and be a work, a boss babe if it means you lose your femininity, you lose your authenticity, and then struggle to have relationships, struggle to be a present mom. Like, so only do that if you can do it, but like learn how to balance it, right? So, like, I'm all in favor of you going out and learning how to work. It just means you have to be able to close a big gap at the end of the day, that gap we were talking about. But like if you, like me, throw yourself into work and don't have the tools to switch hats when you come home, then before you know it, years go by and you are not you anymore. So, if working is what's right for you, great. If staying is home is what's right for you, great. Like as a society, I hate that we are shaming women one way or the other for their choices. That's the whole root of feminism is like you should have the choice. The second that it stopped becoming about choice and women should fit a mold is where I think we took a wrong turn. And also the second we started blaming our men for our problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also think that, I don't know, maybe it's because conversations like this weren't had, but you brought up a point and I was like, huh, I've never was taught the proper tools to make sure that those gaps were bridged.
Yeah. So
Were you ever taught how to bridge the gaps between like your masculine and your femininity?
No, because it was just like you should be financially stable on your own. You should never
Yeah.
depend on it.
Yeah.
And it was like what you should do and like
and what's that should energy? That ought to energy is wounded energy.
Energy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to the Esther Perel, I'm sure you guys have heard of her. She's like a world famous relationship therapist. She's famous for saying the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. And I absolutely love this sentence. The quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. The one sentence I'm going to add to that is the problem is we're not taught how to have quality relationships.
Yeah.
Everything we know about relationships, we learn through trial and error. We learn through observing other relationships. We learn through things gone wrong, right? Like we are never sat down and taught how to do it the right way, or not even the right way. We're not taught ways to do it. And like you can then choose right way from wrong way. And there are a couple of frameworks that have broken through that, right? Like it's only in the last couple of years we started talking about love languages and attachment styles. Like there are some frameworks that have pierced through never being taught this stuff. But even then, like, okay, so you hear of the five, six love languages, but are you ever really taught like what it means? Like, what are examples? What are ways you could do each? No, like you just hear of the five or six different titles, right? Like you never dive deep into those things. You never break them down, analyze them, figure out where you stand in that. And so that's sort of like my biggest thing is if we're never taught how to have quality relationships and the relationship quality determines life quality, well, then your life is only as good as how well you're taught or not taught to have relationships. If you're not taught those tools, you
Yeah.
do the math.
So what advice would you give if there's someone listening out there right now that is probably
I
listening
hope there's someone listening.
that's listening to that sentence? Because
Yeah.
I know that if I was in the dating pool right now, that sentence would probably strike a chord with me, you know? Like, what advice would you give a woman that's listening right now? That's like, okay, what do I need? What tools do I need in my arsenal in order to make sure that I am building what I need to do to have a great relationship?
Um, there's so much I could answer to that. It's hard. I mean, I think studying some of the frameworks that are out there and some of like the major people in the space, there's the Gottmans, there's Esther Perel, like that's definitely a place to start. But there's so much information out there that it's also sort of hard to navigate it. And that's again, sort of why I'm doing what I'm doing because I feel like I'm filling that gap. Like there's a lot of frameworks that are not talked about. And also, all of these frameworks that are out there are sort of standalone or like piecemeal. There's one I love. It's called The Erotic Blueprint by Miss Jaya. And think of it, it's almost like the love languages, but specifically for your sensuality. So, like, some people get really turned on by their senses and they're called the sensual. Some people get really turned on by the taboo and the kinky, and like that's their type. Some people are really turned on by the physical, right? Like seeing someone naked or hearing someone be, naked. Like, so everybody has different things that turn them on, just like everybody has different love languages, just like people have different attachment styles. But all of these things are talked about in isolation from each other. And my whole point is like, these things all go together. Like, if you tend to have a certain kind of love language, I feel like you also tend to have a certain kind of attachment style, and you also tend to have a certain kind of erotic blueprint. Like, why aren't we talking about these things all together? Um, I very much so like to say like it takes I'd like to take a biopsychosocial approach to all of this. And I think that would be perhaps my biggest piece of advice is behind your relationships, there are biological things taking place. There are your hormones, which do affect how you smell and your pheromones and how you attract people or are attracted to people. It affects your communication. It affects your outlook, your energy levels. It affects your skin, which affects your beauty, which does affect your ability to attract someone. So like there's a huge biological component, right? There's a huge psychological component. How you how you either handle or don't handle trauma that you've had that you're bringing with you as baggage into your next relationship, your attachment styles, your love languages, all of that. And then there is social stuff too. The pressure to be married with two kids by the time you're 25, the pressure to be out working, but you feel this internal tension because you want to be at home being a mom, right? Like there are societal, historical, cultural things that influence your relationship just as much as there are psychological and biological things. So I would almost say maybe that's my biggest piece of advice is like you can't just look at one framework and think that's everything. Like love languages is not as it's not all inclusive. You have to zoom out and look at so many other factors. And what does that take? Self-awareness. It takes patience. It takes investing in it. Like it's not quick, it's not easy. Everybody nowadays just wants quick and easy fixes. I don't have one. Like there is no quick and easy fix. You have to face your shit. You've got to fix your shit. Like you've got to learn how to be a better person before you can be a better partner to somebody else. And that's not easy. So, like, you've got to zoom out. you've got to look at these things as a very integrative thing. Um, and it starts from you. Like you can't expect the perfect person to come along and fix you. You also can't expect to attract your most ideal person if you're not in the best place that you can be. So, yeah, like maybe stop believing that there is some magic thing out there. Like I think that is one of the biggest lies or injustices is like I call it the Disney lie. Like, we've been fed that Prince Charming is just going to come around, sweep us off of our feet, fix all of our problems. Like, I'm sure I was definitely raised on all these fairy tales and romance stories. And like, I'm pretty sure most other women were too. There is no such thing as that. Like, you've got to stop waiting for that to happen. You've got to make it happen. But whether you make it happen in a masculine way, a wounded feminine way, or a divine feminine way, will all net out in three different places.
Hmm.
I feel like everything that you say ends up going into like covering like all of our questions have
Oh,
Alex
I was just,
asking.
I literally look at it, I'm like, oh, she said that.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, no,
like everything is that just shows like how connected everything
everything
truly
is.
It's
is.
super connected.
It's
Yeah.
insane. And like the more you're talking about stuff, the more I'm able to immediately relate it to like daily real
Yeah,
world things I'm seeing. Like you talking about how the reason why men are like, oh, whatever you want to do, or like aren't the ones to make the plans. But then I'm on TikTok and I see girls being like, well, if he wanted to, he would, and like they're not putting the effort in, and it's so
And
yeah,
that's the women shaming men that's been drilled
yeah.
into us as like the correct thing to do.
there was it was funny, like it was a week or two ago, I was talking to my boyfriend and we were talking about like why I would want to have a girl, why he would want to have a boy, and I'm like, I just feel like girls have it like worse. Like they are looked at in ways that can be like negative and like clicky groups, but that's like from my personal experience. And he's like, no, 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 no. Like guys have it bad. Like
But that right there is the root of the problem. There is no or, there is no competition. Both of us have it bad,
bad. Yeah.
just for different reasons.
Mhm.
And both of us also have it good. Like, again, talking about eustress versus distress, not everything is bad. Both of us also have it good. We, as two different genders, we struggle with our own unique challenges. Part of those challenges are because we don't live in alignment with our biology. We don't understand how our bodies and minds work, let alone how the bodies and minds of the opposite gender work in order to then interface well. Part of it is societal challenges and things that have been imposed on us. But that's exactly it. It's like the competition, the gender war needs to stop. Like it's rapidly become one of my biggest pet peeves. There's no person that has it better or worse. We all, and even as individuals, we all struggle with our own problems. So it's just a matter of like gaining empathy, learning what the other side goes through. Like, have you ever sat down with your boyfriend or with your husband and been like, what's it like to live as a man?
No, and that's
Yeah.
why, like, when you were saying that, I was like, what a coincidence. Like, because it's true, like, until you actually have the other sex tell you, like, their side, the day-to-day world we live in is so much men are the issue, men are an issue. And it's like, until you hear it from a man saying, no, like, think about how much shit we get,
Hmm.
you're like programmed with all the stuff you see online and like hear when you're out
Mhm.
in the world how shitty men. And I'm sure like you work in the industry where girls sit there and gossip about
Oh yeah,
guy
yeah.
situations.
It's so crazy because when I started deep diving on like really becoming self-aware of like who I was and like what it was that I wanted out of life and all of that, my husband went on the same journey. Obviously our own journeys, but they very much mimicked, what each one of us was going through. And on my husband's journey, he ended up joining a men's group that was
Mm,
really
amazing.
ridiculously similar, Danielle, to what you do. This
Men's groups are so important because men are
men,
even less trained to talk
oh my
Yeah.
and to open up about these things. So the people who do men's work, I hope to do men's work someday.
God.
God's workers, like, and I'm not a religious person, but it is so important to
No,
do men's work.
I cannot agree with you anymore. I think that it's when he first said it, I was like, okay, like in my head, I was thinking, okay, you're gonna meet up with the guys, you'll yap a little, whatever. No,
Have
like
some beer. Like,
yeah,
no.
yeah, this gentleman Grant who started it, it's called Leaders to Legends.
Amazing. I love that.
Did a really great job at facilitating a space where the men really opened up with each other, and it was very much, I think that we have come to a point in society where we don't realize, or we've become blind to the fact that men are just as sensitive as we are.
If anything, they struggle more because they have less tools.
And like they don't understand that they
Yeah.
also need to release that sensitivity, and they also
Yeah.
need to cry sometimes and work through those emotions. I mean, all those emotions are sitting in your body, just wreak
Yeah.
havoc.
I I like to when I was still in with my ex-boyfriend and he and I were struggling, let me tell you. Right as I was deciding to leave him and starting to kind of begin the journey on all of this, there was a metaphor that came out of me one day where I was like, "Oh my God, that really resonated." I was almost surprised that I came up with it. Think of boxes of crayons. Like if each crayon is an emotion, right, or a feeling or something, one layer of depth that you have. I was the box of like 150 that you get from Target with the built-in pencil sharpener that has all these like colors you've never heard of. He was the box of three colors that were like broken that you get at the restaurant that are like half chewed by all the kids, right? Like he had access to three layers of depth to like three main emotions. Anything beyond that, like, and when I was dating him, I kept trying to shake him awake. I was like, "What are you feeling? Like, talk to me, damn it. Like, what is up with you?" And he just was never able to. And I interpreted that as a lack of him wanting to, a lack of trying, a lack of effort, which then further fueled all the resentment and the nitpicking and all of the stuff. As I've gotten down this journey more, I'm like, I don't know if it's that he didn't want to. Like, I don't know if he was ever taught how to label these things, how to feel these things, let alone how to communicate them to somebody else, which is a whole other layer of complexity. So much of what I almost blamed him for and was frustrated for with him wasn't necessarily his fault. It was the way he was brought up and the way that society told him to be. And so, again, that's where building empathy, gaining empathy, like understanding what our men go through, men, understanding what your women go through. Um,
I
I
think
think even,
conversations like this with your partner
oh, totally.
are crucial.
Crucial. Like that's the biggest difference between that relationship that failed and the one I'm in now that's thriving is that in this one we're able to have these conversations. Like similar to you and your husband, like we've both gone through individual problems, solved our own problems. Now as a couple, we're able to talk about these things. We have the frameworks, the language to be able to talk about these things. And I can say to him, like, look, I need you to step up in your masculinity. Like, I need you to help me put me back in my femininity. Or I need you to step into your femininity a little bit because you're being not tender enough. And I need you to be a little bit more tender, right? Like, we have a language that we can talk about, that we can use. So it's not me saying to him, "You're never tender. Why aren't you more tender?" Or "You never plan dates anymore. Why aren't," like, instead of blame and criticism, I can say, "Hey, I need you to do a little bit more of this for me." Like it's almost, it has helped me express my needs rather than my desires rather than my criticisms because I've gained the language of how to talk about this, which is again like where this all starts from is education, knowing this stuff, being taught this stuff explicitly.
100%. I mean, I honestly challenge anyone that this resonates with while you're listening to go home later and have a conversation with your partner about what their needs are, what their desires are, what would make you feel safe, what makes them feel safe. Because starting those uncomfortable conversations, because I'm not going to lie to you, the first time I did it, Danielle, I
Oh,
felt
it's tough.
like, this is fucking weird. Like,
Yeah. But also like I would want to add one question to that, which is like, can you tell me what it's like to live life as a man?
that's what I was gonna bounce off of earlier was the day that my husband and I had that conversation. He left a men's group and I was like, what do you guys talk about? Like, are you guys just like yapping about work? And he was like, no, we talk about like what it's like to be a man in this world and in this society. And I looked at him and I was like, what is it like? I was genuinely,
Enlightened.
oh my God,
Yeah.
empathy that I had from that one conversation
Yeah. So
completely.
eye-opening. You know the Barbie movie that came out? There's like that scene where America Ferraro is like, she has this monologue where she's like, you can't do this, but you got to do this, but you got to do this. And she's like, she's explaining what it's like to live life as a woman in that scene. I saw, I think it was a TikTok of like a man doing something very equivalent, like living life like a man today. Like you need to be masculine, but not too masculine because then you're perceived as a creep or as dangerous or as whatever. But you've got to do this. You've got to work, but you can't work too much because then you're a workaholic who's never available for his family. But you've got to provide for the family. Like he basically had an equivalent sort of monologue. And I was like, holy shit, this Barbie movie got so much publicity because, again, feminism, and like we finally surfaced all these issues that women go through. And I almost feel like, did the Barbie movie like silence our men? Because they're going through the same thing. And the Barbie movie put down men.
Yeah,
Bad, yeah.
It
yeah,
put down men bad.
It
yeah,
was
Like,
almost around the same time too that like the whole like later stage of feminism kind of kicked off. Like that's when
yeah.
everything started trending on TikTok and
yeah.
like the bashing got
And
bigger.
all the trad wives getting all their heat, like all of this is sort of starting around the same time. Yeah. So I'm like, while I love that the Barbie movie brought women up, I hate that it took men down.
Yeah, you
Men
don't
are
have to bring someone
No,
down to
no.
bring someone.
100%. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it honestly does come down to balance. I mean, how can you
Mhm.
sit on this high horse as a woman, right? Thinking of all the things that have been done wrong to us as as a, gender, but not think that there has to be something that affected them, right? I feel like it's like anything, right? Everything has a push and pull.
Mhm.
If
100%.
one feels one way, okay, well, how did we get there?
Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And like, you know, it very much so is a pendulum, right? Like if you go all the way back to the 30s, 40s, before World War II, like women definitely were housewives. They didn't have as much opportunity. They did definitely did not have the same rights, right? So then the early feminist movement came around and like sort of brought us a little bit more towards the middle, right? Like women all of a sudden started working, we started to gain more rights, like that's cool. But then we kind of overcorrected and swung all the way in the opposite direction. And now we've moved to this place. I know this is going to be triggering for people, but we've moved to this place where women are the same as men. There is no such thing as gender. We are the same. And I actually think that's more damaging than beneficial. I think where we should have moved is the direction of we said it earlier, equity, not equality. Women and men deserve the same rights, the same opportunities, the same choices. But biologically, we are two very different species. Our needs, our wants, our tendencies, our desires, our strengths, our weaknesses, there are very undeniable differences between those two things because our brains are marinated in two totally different sets of hormones, which changes things. And rather than eliminating gender as the way forward, and like that's our solution is to eliminate gender. What we really should have done is okay, the female gender, the male gender. What are those differences? Let's teach people about them. Women, let's get you to understand not only you better, but also the men. Men, let's first teach you about you, but then also teach you about the women. Like even as women, I would say I'm taking a guess here, 100%, but probably 90% of my friends that I talk to don't understand their periods, don't understand how menstruation works, what to expect with pregnancy, what to expect with perimenopause. So if you don't even understand your own hormones and your own like changes that you're going to go through with your own hormones, how can you even understand theirs? And if you don't even understand yours, and arguably women's hormones are more complicated, right? If we don't even understand ours, then how can we expect the men to understand ours? If we don't even know it, and we're the more complicated ones, and we are those ones, right? So it's like rather than moving in this direction that gender doesn't exist, I would have so loved to see us move in the direction instead of, okay, we're two different genders, we deserve the same rights, but we work with different materials. We're starting from different places. How do we make things equitable between us and like give everybody equal right and opportunity given what they're working with, rather than eliminating gender altogether. Um, and
Yeah.
like there's so many downstream side effects of eliminating gender and this whole movement that we're in. And like, look, that's not to say that every woman is going to be the same. You can be a more masculine woman. You can be a more feminine woman. You can be somebody who's really ambidextrous and who switches between both. Like, I'm not trying to say that because I believe that there's only two genders that women all have to look the same. Like, no, there is a huge spectrum in there of what it could mean to live life as a woman and what it could mean to live life as a male. But I do think you do yourself harm if you if you live life like those differences aren't real.
Yeah. I could not agree more. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the way you just said that was so beautifully said. I think,
It goes back to societal things of like society says there's only one way that a woman can live or look. Well, like what a woman should look like, how a woman should sound, how she should smell. Like society has like one answer that's acceptable for that. And so because society doesn't allow men to wear dresses and still be men, right? Like because society doesn't allow you to be a tomboy but still be a woman. It's like because there are such rigid societal patterns and beliefs, we don't have we don't feel like we have the freedom to express this full range of what it means to be a woman or what it means to be feminine.
I mean, it's literally as simple as like the difference between at a store, there's cologne and there's perfume. Like, I personally love the cologne Brett wears, but like to me, I'm not like, I'm thinking, oh, I can't buy that. It's cologne. Like, that's like, I buy that for him. Let me find a perfume as close to it as I can. I'll buy that
yeah,
one. Like, just because of like what aisle it's in, but like,
yeah,
that's just a scent that you enjoy
Yeah.
smelling like.
Even something as basic as a scent.
Oh, it should not be cologne and
yeah,
perfume. It should just be like perfumes everyone, like men, women,
Yeah,
that's describing a scent in a bottle that you spray on yourself.
exactly.
Deodorant is like sold to different masculine, feminine. Like all these things are so split to like put you in this category.
Yeah.
But like me wearing the cologne that he has should not make me masculine because I'm buying cologne.
no,
That's just like the scent that I would prefer to wear.
no.
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that.
And that's, that's the crazy thing is that like we still split using your example because I think that's actually a really cool one.
A great example.
It's we still split our colognes from our perfumes, but we've eliminated male versus female.
Yeah.
We've created binary and non-gendered and this and that. Like we've eliminated gender, but we still split between cologne and perfume.
It's like,
Make that make sense?
while she said that, I don't know if you guys saw my face, but as you were saying that, I was like, this doesn't
Makes sense.
make sense.
No.
Hmm.
Something is not clicking. Like,
Well, the part of it that does make sense, so much of this comes back to capitalism, which like is a whole nother topic that we haven't even gotten into. So much of why the feminist movement was successful and getting women out into the working world is because it benefits capitalism. So capitalism put a lot of push behind making that happen. Like again, we're not getting into it, but cologne and perfume benefits capitalism.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the reason why that didn't go away is the whole economy. Like that's a
Hmm.
market. That's a
It's a marketing thing, which is successful. So it doesn't go away for because it's revenue generating. And we, especially as an American society, care a lot about that.
but I would almost think if they were more open to like what we've been talking about, they would realize that if they opened their product and eliminated cologne versus perfume, they would now open it up to an even bigger market of both genders versus limiting it to the one. Like it's just the stubbornness and like the
Yeah.
program
I was
of
just
the
about to say, I think
mindset.
it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's so much deeper than that. Yeah. But that's like a very good surface level, like a micro example of it to pull from, but it runs so much deeper than that, which is crazy. I mean, even my boyfriend's skincare, he gets skincare by I think it's called TJ Hanley or whatever. And the tagline is uncomplicated skincare for men. And I'm like, look, my stuff might be scented differently than yours, but lotion is lotion.
Routine.
eye serum is eye serum. Like, what do you mean uncomplicated skincare for men? Like, hell, I want uncomplicated skincare for women. Like, so, I mean, there's certain things where it makes sense to be gendered and to differentiate it, and there are real differences that we should not, cannot ignore, like how we communicate, like how we emote, like how we bond and connect and attach. And then there are things where I'm like, really? We don't need to gender this. Why is this gendered? Like cologne and perfume, like lotion. I'm like, like wearing a freaking dress. Like, why is that gendered? I can go on and on about this. It's going to turn into an event session.
Make me smile.
Yeah, like this is a whole other episode, so we will
I know.
make another one with you because there's just
Yeah.
so much to talk
Oh, the
about.
way that I could pick your brain.
Uh, well, do it. Ask me like the biggest question that's on your mind.
Literally all night. No, honestly, I feel like my brain is buzzing after this conversation
Good.
today in the best way. Like
Yeah.
brain is buzzing in the best way. Um, I don't even think I could pull one question that I could possibly ask you.
Well, I was even just gonna say, like, closing it up, like, I personally just from the whatever hour to hour and a half
Yeah.
that we've spent talking, feel like I can walk out of the studio and be more equipped to like navigate,
So empowered.
yeah, like
Yeah.
relationships
Good.
and like just
Oh, that makes me so happy. That's my goal, right? It's like
and it
it is possible.
yeah, it is crazy like how much learning from you just within this short time. So like
Yeah.
for people that are listening and have already learned so much and want to talk to you like themselves and ask their questions, how can they work with you and like learn more about your work and get in contact with you?
Well, thanks so much for asking and for giving me the platform to say that. So my brand is called The Intimate Instinct. In all transparency, it's fairly new. I only launched at the beginning of this year, so we're still budding. But my website, www.theintimateinstinct.com, I'm very inactive on socials. Marley, I could probably take a few tips from you on how to market myself better, but
Oh,
very inactive on socials. But you can find me there at The Intimate Instinct. Best way to get in contact with me is probably through my website. Every now and then, I host some webinars that are free, and those are a great way to just kind of join along. I've spoken on a couple of podcasts, so you can find me there too. I run my women's group. That's probably the best way. So, my women's group, it's 10 sessions over the course of 3 months. We get together in groups that are no larger than 10 women. So, it keeps the space super conversational and intimate. And we talk about everything that we've talked about today: hormones and neurotransmitters, masculine and feminine energy, gender roles and expectations, historical and cultural shifts that have adjusted those things, lifestyle changes that we can do to support our hormones, sexuality, intimacy, relationships, quality of life. We talk about all of this. And so if you're wanting to do that work, it's not easy, it's not quick. There's no, instant return. But every session you do walk away with one more piece of information that I wish you would have had from the time you were 10. So that's the best way to get involved. Come join the group.
And do you have the group as an option for virtual or just in person
It's
or
all virtual. It's
awesome?
all virtual. So I've had one woman in Nigeria all the way to California to Tennessee and the Carolinas. So people from everywhere, and all ages. Like that's sort of a beautiful thing too, is I don't make a group of like just 20-year-olds. No, you're going to learn from the 6-year-olds who also, went through very different cultural things than you did and have seen a lot more cultural shifts, and you're going to learn from them the same way they're going to learn from you. Because at the end of the day, we're all just the same women.
That's so awesome. Thank you
Yeah,
so much
thank you,
for
thank you.
all your insight,
of course.
sharing your passion,
Yeah.
and just
Loved sharing it. We'll have to do another one. There's so much more we could
God,
unpack.
yes.
absolutely their podcast episode with you.
Perfect.
But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I know that you guys are probably buzzing at home listening to this too. I hope that you feel empowered and that it kind of struck a chord in you, and that if there is something that you heard in this episode that you're like, huh, reach out. Like she is a source that you're gonna want to pick her brain. So
Yeah, and like honestly, if you disagree, I love
Yeah.
debate. I love understanding why you disagree. So if you disagree, my only request is Don't come at me with insults. Don't come at me with this like negative, toxic, whatever. Come at me with questions, with curiosity. Why do I feel the same? Why do I feel the way I did? Why did I say the thing I said? Why do you feel differently? Come ready for a discussion, for a debate, for an intellectual conversation. Just don't come with insults because I'm protecting myself from that.
I
And I
love
will
that.
come for you.
Yeah, exactly. You've got my back. I appreciate you.
Literally. But no, thank you so much again. And guys, drop comments below. Let us
Yeah.
know how you feel after this episode.
Yes, please.
All right, bye guys.
Bye, everyone.